So what is an MCP server and why should you care? That's the question I'm going to be answering in this video. And if you're a B2B business owner, this will significantly impact your decision making as it relates to software that you invest in your business. Now, if these are the types of questions that you're asking regularly, this is part of my 30-day challenge where I'm answering some of these questions every single day for 5 minutes in one take. If you like that sort of thing, please subscribe now to follow along. Now let's get stuck in. So an MCP server stands for Model Context Protocol, and it was invented by Anthropic, the people who are behind Claude. And basically what it allows you to do is it allows you to go into Claude or ChatGPT or whatever and connect in software so that you can essentially prompt it to do things on external software. Right now, a lot of business owners that I speak to treat Claude or ChatGPT or whichever LLM they use kind of like a calculator. It'll say, draft this email for me. But it's so much more powerful than that when you start to bring in these connectors via MCP protocol. So what essentially it does is it gives you a server that relates to your software. And then rather than having to log into that software to get the information you need, you can simply speak to Claude or ChatGPT or whatever to be able to get the information that you need out of that software. So I'll give you a perfect prime example. So obviously, I specialize in sort of AI as it relates to sales and marketing. So the CRM is probably the most important piece of software as it relates to sales and marketing. So when you connect, say, for example, HubSpot via MCP, rather than having to log in, go to your reports, you can simply just say, what are my sales numbers from last week for my team? And it will give you the answer. And then you'll also be able to run analysis, like who out of my team are the highest performing as it relates to KPIs as you know it. So these are some use cases that you need to keep in mind as it relates to MCP. Now, super important, when you're considering software, not all software has an MCP server. So I think this feature is something that you must go to first when you're considering another subscription for your business, right? So we don't need more subscriptions, but equally at the same time, you don't want to go to the other extreme and say, oh, well, I can probably build a CRM with my own ChatGPT or whatever. Because if you go down that route, it'll end up distracting you from the core mission, which is to drive your business, right? This is a project inside your business that'll probably distract you, especially if you're a smaller business. You're better off just going to a piece of software that has MCP. And then you know that, right, this has got MCP, that's awesome. It means I'll be able to connect and do what I need to do simply from the ChatGPT or Claude interface rather than having to jump through various hoops. Now, another thing that you need to be mindful of as it relates to MCP is anytime you're getting your LLM of choice to run tasks without you. So for example, if you're using co-work inside of Claude, what you want to avoid is a situation where you're running very token heavy tasks, because depending on what subscription of your LLM that you're on, so with Claude, you've got the Pro and the Max subscription, then you're sort of enterprise level. Most people who watch these videos are small businesses, so enterprise is sort of out of the realm. But so you're certainly dealing with either the free plan, which I don't recommend anyone, if you're running a business, to be on. You need to be on at least the Pro plan. But then if you go to the Max plan, the difference between the two is your token usage. So if you set up, various different workflows via MCP that are quite token heavy, you'll end up hitting your limits quite quickly. So some of you who are used to not just AI, but also automation might be thinking, well, where does API sit in this whole thing? So API stands for Application Processing Interface. And this is something you'd be used to if you're a business that's been using Zapier, Make, or N8N for a very long time. This next video is going to take you through exactly what the differences are, when you should be using MCP, or what kind of business should be using MCP, and which use cases there are for API, because APIs still do have a very important role to play in the whole AI and automation space as it relates to your sales and marketing systems. So I'll see you in that video. Bye.